Welcome to African Folktales by D. Elenas. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and tell us in the comments where you're joining us from. Don't forget to turn on notifications so every story comes straight to you. Some stories entertain you, others stay with you long after the video ends. This is one of those stories. In a small community where everyone counted what others had, there was one house where bread never finished. No matter how hard times became, no matter how high prices rose, no matter how many mouths came knocking, the bread was always there. People whispered. Some admired it, others envied it, many judged it, but no one knew the truth. This story is about sacrifice, silent kindness, pressure from society, and the dangerous cost of being misunderstood. It is about how people can eat from your table, smile at you, and still turn against you. And it is about why rushing life decisions can destroy even the purest hearts. If you enjoy deep African moral stories, real life lessons, emotional storytelling, and endings that make you reflect, please subscribe, like this video, and stay with us till the end. Because if only they knew, they would never have spoken the way they did. Now, let the story begin. In a narrow street where voices carried easily from one compound to another, lived a woman named Nkiru. Her house was small, with faded paint and a weak wooden door, but one thing made it different. Every morning, the smell of fresh bread floated from her window. People noticed. Children passing to school would slow down. Neighbors would peek. Some would smile, others would frown. Bread was expensive now, yet in Nkiru's house, it never seemed to finish. Nkiru was a widow. Her husband died 7 years ago, leaving her with 2 children and many debts. Since then, life had not been kind. She sold bread and tea from a small table by the roadside. Her hands were always busy, her eyes always tired. Yet, every evening, her tray was full again. "Mom Nkiru, your bread never finished so," one woman joked one morning. Nkiru smiled, but said nothing. She was not loud. She did not explain herself. She simply worked. Before sunrise, she woke up to pray. After that, she kneaded dough while her children slept. By the time the street woke, her bread was already lined neatly, brown and soft. What no one knew was that every loaf carried a story, a heavy one, and this was only the beginning. Nkiru did not always sell bread. Before marriage, she was a seamstress. Her fingers were quick, her stitches neat. People trusted her with wedding gowns and Sunday dresses. Life was simple then. She laughed more. When she married Emeka, hope followed her into her new home. He was a delivery driver, strong and cheerful. Together, they dreamed of opening a shop. Then sickness came. At first, Emeka only complained of headaches. Later, he could not stand for long. Hospital visits became normal. Bills piled up. Nkiru sold her sewing machine to pay one. Then another. When Emeka died, the dreams died with him. The landlord wanted rent. School fees waited for no one. Nkiru cried many nights, but every morning, she stood up. Bread was cheaper to start with. She learned from a woman in the next street. The first batch burnt. The second was hard. But she kept trying. Soon, people liked it. She sold 1 loaf, then 2, then 5. Still, there were days she went to bed hungry so her children could eat. And still, the bread never finished. People began to talk. By the 3rd year, Nkiru's table had become a daily stop. Workers bought breakfast. School children begged for crumbs. Neighbors borrowed money, promising to pay back. She never said no. God will replace it, she always said. Her children, Chima and Ifananya, helped after school. Chima carried water. Ifananya arranged the bread neatly. They were polite children, but people rarely noticed that. What they noticed was the bread. How does she do it? One man asked. She must be doing something else. Another replied. Rumors grew like weeds. Some said she had a secret helper. Others said she collected money from men at night. A few even said she was using charms. Nkiru heard everything. She heard the whispers when she passed. She saw the looks. But she kept quiet. Every night, after her children slept, she counted her money. She saved little by little. Some days she smiled. Other days she cried softly into her wrapper. Her prayer was simple. God, let my children lack nothing. And every morning, the bread came again. Trouble started quietly. One afternoon, a woman named Mama F stood by Nkiru's table longer than usual. She crossed her arms and watched customers buy. Nkiru, she finally said. Business is good, oh? Nkiru nodded. But it's strange, Mama F continued. Others are complaining. Flour is costly. Yeast is costly. But your own bread is always plenty. People nearby slowed down to listen. Nkiru felt her chest tighten. She smiled gently. God provides, Mama F laughed. God provides for all of us. Or is he only in your house? The street went quiet. That day, fewer people bought bread. The next day, even fewer. Rumors spread faster than fire. Some parents stopped their children from coming near her table. Others watched her like she was hiding something. That night, Nkiru sat on her bed, staring at the wall. Her children slept beside her. She whispered. I cannot explain what they will not understand, but pressure had started. And pressure changes everything. The first knock came late at night. Nkiru almost ignored it. Then she heard a familiar voice. It was Pastor Daniel from the nearby church. My daughter, he said gently, sitting on her wooden chair. People are talking. She lowered her eyes. They say you are hiding something. That this bread matter is not normal. Silence filled the room. Pastor Daniel continued. Sometimes, when God blesses us, we must explain. So people don't misunderstand. Nkiru's hands trembled. If I explain, she said slowly, will it stop the talk? The pastor hesitated. That answer told her everything. After he left, Nkiru cried quietly. Not because of shame, but because the truth she carried was too heavy to share. She stood up, wiped her tears, and went to check the dough resting in the corner. Tomorrow, she would bake again, because whether they understood or not, the bread still had to come, and the real reason remained hidden. The pressure did not stop. It grew teeth. The next Sunday, Nkiru noticed people whispering during church. When she stood to sing, some eyes followed her like she was standing alone. After service, nobody waited to greet her. At home, her children noticed it too. Mama, Chima asked, did we do something wrong? Nkiru pulled him close. No, my son. Sometimes people don't understand what they see, but even she was growing tired. Flour prices increased again. Yeast doubled. Firewood became scarce. That night, she counted her money twice. It was not enough. Still, at dawn, she woke up. She mixed the dough slowly, whispering prayers with every turn of her hands. Sweat gathered on her forehead. Her back ached, but she did not stop. By morning, the bread was ready. When she carried her tray outside, a few people stared in disbelief. How? Someone muttered. Nkiru ignored them. She sold quietly. She smiled gently. But inside her chest, fear had started growing. How long could she keep this up? And how long before the truth forced itself out? That evening, an unexpected visitor arrived. It was Ngozi, her younger sister. She had not visited in years. Ngozi looked around the small room and sighed. Sister, life has not been easy on you. Nkiru smiled weakly. They talked late into the night. About their childhood. About Emeka. About the children. Then Ngozi asked the question Nkiru feared. People are saying strange things, Ngozi said softly. They say your bread never finishes. Nkiru's hands froze. Ngozi reached out. Please, tell me the truth. Are you okay? Tears filled Nkiru's eyes. She stood up and went to the small cupboard in the corner. From under folded clothes, she brought out a brown envelope. She did not open it. Some things, she said, are not meant to be spoken. Ngozi wanted to push further, but one look at her sister's face stopped her. That night, Ngozi could not sleep, and neither could Nkiru, because the secret was no longer hers alone. The following week, things changed. Inspectors came to the street. They checked stalls and asked questions. Someone had reported Nkiru's business. Where is your license? One man asked. I applied. She replied calmly. I'm still waiting. They wrote notes. They warned her. That afternoon, only 3 loaves sold. Her children sat quietly behind the table. Mama, Ifananya whispered, should we close? Nkiru shook her head. No. That night, she sat alone after everyone slept. She opened the brown envelope for the first time in months. Inside were hospital receipts, old loan papers, a small notebook filled with figures and dates. She touched them like they were wounds. Every loaf she sold was already spent before it was baked. Every profit had a destination. There was no magic. Only sacrifice. She closed the envelope gently. Tomorrow, she would bake again, even if the whole street turned against her. The breaking point came suddenly. One morning, as Nkiru arranged her bread, Mama F returned with 2 other women. "This is enough," Mama F said loudly. "Tell us the truth today." People gathered. "Where do you get money?" Another woman asked. "Why does your bread never finish?" Children stopped playing. Adults leaned in. Nkiru felt her throat tighten. Her hands shook. She looked at her children. Then at the crowd. "I work hard," she said quietly. They laughed. "That is not an answer." Mama F snapped. Tears rolled down Nkiru's face. "I cannot explain," she said again. "Please," but the crowd had already decided. That day, no one bought bread. She packed her tray slowly and walked home under heavy stares. Something inside her cracked, and once it cracks, it never stays the same. Asterisk. That night, Nkiru made a decision. She sat on the floor beside her children's sleeping mats and watched them breathe. Their faces were calm, innocent. She whispered, "I tried." Before dawn, she packed the remaining flour. She tied her wrapper tight. She lifted the brown envelope one last time. By sunrise, her table was empty. Neighbors passed and looked around. "Where is the bread woman?" Someone asked. No smell of baking filled the air. No tray stood by the roadside. The street felt strange, for the first time in years. The bread had finished, and soon they would learn why. 3 days passed. The street felt uneasy. Children asked questions. Adults pretended not to care, yet they checked the roadside each morning. "No bread again?" Someone asked. Mama F frowned. "Maybe she ran away." Another woman replied, "Or maybe her secret finally caught her." But deep inside, something felt wrong. On the 4th day, Chima did not go to school. He sat on the doorstep, staring at the empty road. His teacher later came asking questions. "Where is your mother?" she asked gently. Chima lowered his head. She said we should stay inside. That same evening, Pastor Daniel returned. He knocked, but no one answered. He knocked again. Finally, Ifananya opened the door. Inside, the house was too quiet. No dough, no firewood, no bread smell, only silence. The pastor's heart sank. Something was missing, and it was not just bread. That night, Ngozi came back. She had heard the rumors. She had noticed the silence. When she entered the house, she found Nkiru sitting on the floor, her back against the wall. Her eyes were tired, but calm. "Nkiru," Ngozi whispered, "why didn't you tell me?" Nkiru slowly pushed the brown envelope forward. Ngozi opened it. Her hands shook. Hospital bills, loan papers, school fee receipts, dates circled in red, amounts written again and again. Ngozi covered her mouth. "All this?" she cried. "You carried this alone?" Nkiru nodded. "Every loaf had an assignment." Ngozi sobbed. "Why didn't you stop?" "Because if I stopped," Nkiru replied softly, "someone else would suffer." Ngozi looked around the room and finally understood. The bread never finished because it was never for profit. It was survival. And sacrifice. The truth did not stay hidden for long, Ngozi told Pastor Daniel. The pastor called the elders. By evening, the street gathered again, but this time, quietly. They listened. They saw the papers. They counted the sacrifices. Mama F's face changed. "So all this while," she whispered, someone else said, "she was paying debts, feeding children, saving school fees," another added, "and we accused her." Silence fell like heavy rain. That night, no one slept well. The bread woman they mocked was the one holding everyone together. Without knowing, guilt settled in. But guilt cannot turn back time. The next morning, Mama F carried a tray. Others followed. Flour, yeast, firewood, money. They walked to Nkiru's door together. "Nkiru," Mama F said, voice shaking, "forgive us." Nkiru looked at them quietly. She did not shout. She did not smile. "I did not ask for understanding," she said. "I only asked for peace." Tears flowed freely. They begged her to return to the roadside, to bake again. She shook her head. "Some strength," she said softly, "does not return once it is spent." The street had learned, but learning came late. Weeks later, Nkiru moved. Not far, just enough. The roadside stayed empty. People passed and remembered. Children whispered. Adults lowered their heads. From that day on, whenever someone judged too quickly, another would say, "Remember the bread woman," because now they knew the bread never finished, because her sacrifice never rested. And not every miracle makes noise. Life did not pause after Nkiru left. The street continued, but something was missing. Mornings felt colder. Children rushed to school without stopping. The air no longer carried the warm smell of bread. Some neighbors tried to bake their own. It was not the same. Mama F watched from her window every morning, guilt sitting heavy on her chest. She remembered every sharp word she spoke, every laugh she shared. If only we asked, she whispered once. Pastor Daniel preached differently now. His sermons carried weight. He spoke about kindness without questions and help without judgment. People listened more carefully, but lessons learned too late still hurt. Far away, in a small rented room, Kiru started again. No stall, no roadside, just a small oven borrowed from a friend. She baked fewer loaves, only what was needed. Her children adjusted. They smiled more. They slept better. The bread still came, but this time, quietly. Chima grew older quickly. One afternoon, he asked, "Mama, were they bad people?" Nkiru paused. "No," she said gently. "They were just afraid of what they didn't understand." "If we go back," he asked, "will they be kind now?" Nkiru smiled sadly. Kindness should not wait for regret. She focused on teaching her children honesty, patience, and courage. Ngozi visited often. She helped when she could. She spoke to people on Nkiru's behalf, but Nkiru never returned. Peace had found her. Back in the street, people began helping one another more. Bread sellers shared flour. Mothers watched each other's children. Nkiru's absence became a lesson louder than her presence ever was. Sometimes, the greatest teaching comes when someone walks away. Months passed. One rainy evening, Mama F knocked on Nkiru's new door. She held a small bag of flour. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said, eyes wet. "I only came to say thank you." Nkiru took the bag. "Thank you," she replied calmly. Mama F cried openly. "We didn't deserve you." Nkiru shook her head. "Everyone deserves kindness, but not everyone knows how to give it." They sat quietly. For the first time, Mama F understood what silence could teach. Years later, the story spread. People told it differently, but the message stayed. Don't judge too fast. Ask before you accuse. Some people survive by sacrifice, not magic. Chima entered secondary school. Ifananya learned baking properly. Together, they helped their mother. Their bread business grew again, slower, safer. This time, they kept no secrets, and strangely, people respected them more, because truth spoken early is lighter than truth discovered late. One quiet evening, Nkiru sat outside her door, watching the sun go down. She thought about the old street. She felt no anger, only understanding. Life had tested her strength, but it did not break her heart. The bread still came, but now, it carried peace instead of pain. And that made all the difference. One market day, a woman recognized Nkiru. "You are the bread woman," she said softly. Nkiru nodded. "My mother talks about you," the woman continued. "She says you taught her not to judge people by what they have." Nkiru felt something warm in her chest. The story had grown beyond her pain, but it had become a lesson. That evening, Nkiru explained everything to her children. "No secret lasts forever," she said, "but some truths need time." Chima listened carefully. "So the bread never finished," he said slowly, "because you never stopped giving." Nkiru smiled. "Yes." Years later, Chima told the story in school. His classmates were quiet. The teacher wiped her eyes. "Some heroes," she said, "wear no crowns." Back on the old street, a new bread seller appeared. People treated her kindly. They helped. They asked questions. They remembered. If only they knew why the bread never finished, they would have spoken gently. They would have asked questions. They would have helped sooner. But now they knew, and knowing changed them, because some bread feeds the body, and some feeds the soul.